Kelly, please.
Thank you, Kieran Corlett. The Labour Party will be 100% supporting the nurses in their action. I'd like to welcome the NMO representatives here today. I'd also like to acknowledge the PNA who are obviously represented as well. This is a very sorry day, Minister, that it's come to this. I know the other minister senior minister needs to be away for personal time, and I 100% appreciate that, and I'm glad you're here because I think you're a person who listens. I just want to read out some of the stats relating to where we are. There was close on 110,000 people on trolleys in 2018 due to understaffing. We also know there's undercapacity, but understaffing in the health service. 7,000 procedures were cancelled in 2018 due to understaffing. IMO figures, by the way. Over 1,700 fewer staff nurses in Ireland than there was a decade ago. 10,000 fee paid to overseas recruitment firms for each nurse recruited. 60% of nurses registered in 2017 were migrant nurses. 71% of Ireland's nursing and midwifery students are considering leaving Ireland, according to a survey last year. In the past decade, the number of nurses has declined by 4%. And really, all of those accumulated show we have a dramatic and serious issue when it comes to nursing and midwifery in this country. I'm glad Fianna Fáil put forward this motion as it gives us an opportunity to speak on this. It's laudable. I do find it ironic, given Deputy Donnelly's contribution in the Health Committee in July the 11th, where he expressed his views, which I was very, very surprised at, in relation to especially entry-level nursing. But I do acknowledge that he's trying to turn that around on behalf of his party, and that's why ourselves and other groups in here have put forward a motion to amend his and Fianna Fáil's motion to strengthen it. And I'll get back to that. Nurses don't go on strike lightly. There's hardly any families inside here that don't have members who have been nurses or are nurses, and I'm no different. This is not easy for them. Nursing is a vocation, a real deep vocation. So to go on strike is actually the last resort. To withdraw your labour shows the level of frustration that is out there. I represent County Tipperary, and either side of our county we have two of the highest overcrowding hospitals in Ireland, in the University of Limerick and South Tipperary General. I meet nurses all the time. Their level of frustration, Minister, is beyond just pay, and pay is part of this. The working conditions are intolerable, and in many cases affecting their health. And it is, of course, also about not just working conditions, but it is about pay, given the fact that nurses are earning 7,000 less than similar healthcare professionals, physiotherapists, OCs, speech and language, etc. And given the fact that they have to spend 4 years qualifying, this isn't acceptable. But it is also, in the main, about recruitment and retention. And the figures I've outlined there show that. And the fact that there's one application for every 4 nursing vacancies, and this has been shown as a fact, absolutely demonstrates the issue we're trying to deal with here tonight. Nurses and midwives are at the lowest paid graduates in the health service, and this has to absolutely be dealt with, and dealt with quickly. And I hear spinning coming from the government, spinning in relation to that nurses are earning 57k. I don't know if you follow on social media, Minister, but a lot of nurses have been putting up their pay slips and they're not earning 57,000 or anywhere near it. And the way in which that figure was manufactured isn't the right way of doing things. There's also spinning going on that's going to cost 300 million. And anyone doing basic maths knows that if you deduct agency pay, of approximately somewhere between 120 and 140 million, the income tax that will be contributed as a result, the excessive recruitment costs, inflated, absolutely crazy recruitment costs, and the actual efficiencies of the benefits of more nurses and midwives, that figure is a fraction of what's been put out there. So if you look at where we are now, and if you look at the pay and the working conditions of nurses and midwives, if you look at it compared to our neighbour across the sea, if you look at it to English-speaking countries, we have a serious, serious problem, and they're not being treated fairly. And the topic of the week and the topic of the year is obviously Brexit. But you can imagine, if Brexit goes through in the manner and the shambles that's going through at the moment, the situation we'll be in as regards retention of nurses and the pull from Britain, because they won't be looking towards Europe as much anymore for nurses into the future, well then our issues will be accentuated and become far worse. Because if you look at it compared to nurses who are working in English hospitals, the ratio by which they're promoted is a lot quicker. They're working on average 1.5 hours less, and furthermore, obviously, they're better paid. There is another issue which I don't think gets enough attention, and that is the actual health and safety of nurses and the health and safety of patients as a consequence of the fact that we don't have enough nurses. I have seen with my own eyes the condition and the way and the health and well-being of nurses as a result of being overworked. I've had very close personal experience of this. And it's happening all over the country. I've met nurses. As I said before, I have members of my own family who are nurses. And I've seen this. The excessive hours and the excessive responsibility and the impact on their mental health is simply something we can't continue to allow to happen. And also, because of the level of time and effort that they have to put in, the safety of the actual patients. And because if they're working that hard, mistakes do happen. And of course, who will bear the responsibility? Who will be brought up in front of discipline? Only the nurses. And that isn't fair either, because of the situation they're being left in, because of the vocation that they have, and because of their willingness to take care of people. I spent 11 months doing sláinte care along with other colleagues inside here. We have the National Maternity Plan, we have the Mental Health Strategy, we have the requirements across a whole range. I spent 4 hours debating the Children's Hospital this morning in the committee. We need the provision of nurses to implement all of those strategies. Otherwise, they are a waste of time. If we don't value our single, probably most important resource to keep the blood flowing in the health system, which is nurses and midwives, then these strategies aren't worth the paper they're written on. And I just want to say straight out, there has been a lot of commentary about the fact that this will have knock-on pay impact. And I understand the nervousness. But it is quite clear from the pay deal that was negotiated that there is conditionality in there to deal with this. The issues that the nurses raised have not been dealt with. There's conditionality in the pay agreement for it to be dealt with. It hasn't been dealt with to date. The reason we are heading towards strike is because it hasn't been honoured. The stats are there to show that it hasn't been honoured. It must be honoured. The amendment I, with others, have put down to the motion tonight is to create a situation whereby allows a space for negotiations to happen, but within a fixed timeline, to deal with the retention, recruitment issues and pay issues that are quite obvious. Please take this on board, because otherwise I can absolutely categorically guarantee you, Minister, we will be out on strike in 14 days' time. We will be dealing with this. The consequences for surgeries and the impact on people out there, the public out there, will be pretty dramatic, and it will be ongoing. And the public will support the nurses because they know the conditions in which they're working in. Thank you.
Deputy. Now, Deputy